Ancient builders created materials that repair themselves and machines that predicted the stars. These are not legends, but real artifacts that defy our modern understanding. We still cannot recreate them. This video will reveal 25 of these lost technologies, giving you a new perspective on human history itself. How did a 2,000-year-old device compute astronomical cycles with gearwork unmatched for centuries? Why does a Roman cup change color using particles invisible to the naked eye? By the end, you will see the past not as a simple progression, but as a landscape of brilliant peaks and forgotten valleys. What does our inability to rebuild these wonders say about our own civilization? Sponges and statues were not the only treasures pulled from that sunken Roman ship. In the year 1901, divers sifting through the wreckage near the Greek island of Antikythera found a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed utterly unremarkable. It was only years later, when the crust was painstakingly removed, that the true marvel was revealed. Inside was a complex clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with tiny, precisely cut teeth. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old analog computer that stands as a shocking anomaly in the history of technology. Historians and engineers who have studied its fragments are unanimous. Nothing else of comparable mechanical intricacy would appear for over 1,000 years. This was not a simple calendar. Its dials and pointers could predict the movements of the sun and moon, forecast eclipses, and even track the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon with a brilliant solution, a pin and slot device that accounted for its changing speed in the sky, a concept of sophistication we would not see again until the European Renaissance. Think of the knowledge required. You need a deep understanding of astronomical cycles, the mathematical skill to translate those cycles into gear ratios, and the artisan craftsmanship to build it all on a miniature scale. This was not a tool for amateurs. It hints at a lost tradition of Greek mechanical science, a school of thought that understood the universe as a great ticking machine. The very existence of the Antikythera mechanism forces a profound question. If this single device survived by pure chance, what other mechanical wonders from the ancient world have been lost to us forever, their secrets waiting at the bottom of the sea or buried beneath the dust of centuries? While the Antikythera mechanism reveals a lost mastery of machinery, another Roman creation demonstrates a genius for materials that has literally stood the test of time. Look up inside the Pantheon in Rome at that breathtaking, unsupported dome. It is the largest of its kind ever made from non-reinforced concrete, and it has weathered nearly 2,000 years without crumbling. Modern concrete, by stark contrast, often shows significant decay within decades. The secret was in their recipe, a formula that gave their structures a seemingly magical ability to heal themselves. Roman engineers did not just use sand and gravel. They mixed lime and volcanic ash, specifically a type of ash from the Pozzuoli region called pozzolana. This special ingredient is the key to the concrete's longevity. When tiny cracks eventually form from stress and time, rainwater seeps in. But instead of widening the cracks and causing the steel rebar inside modern concrete to rust and expand, the Roman mixture initiates a chemical miracle. The water reacts with the leftover lime and the volcanic crystals in the ash, prompting the growth of new, interlocking mineral formations that effectively glue the crack back together. This is a material that repairs itself. Scientists analyzing samples have found these stable, plate-like crystals growing throughout the Roman concrete, creating a resilient structure that actually gets stronger over time in the right conditions. This explains why ancient Roman harbors, submerged in the corrosive seawater of the Mediterranean for centuries, remain largely intact. Their concrete blocks have endured where our own modern port structures require constant and expensive maintenance. So why was this superior formula lost? The fall of the Roman Empire led to a fragmentation of knowledge and a decline in large-scale public works. The specific volcanic ash was no longer quarried and shipped, and the intricate understanding of the chemical process faded from memory. It makes you wonder about the environmental wisdom our ancestors possessed. We pour countless tons of concrete every year, a process that generates massive amounts of carbon dioxide, only for our structures to deteriorate. The Romans built things to last for millennia, using local, natural materials in a sustainable cycle. Their concrete is not just a lost technology, it is a challenge to our entire modern approach to construction. The legends whispered by crusaders returning from the Holy Land spoke of swords with almost supernatural power. They told of blades so sharp and resilient they could cleave a falling silk scarf in midair and shatter a European knight's inferior sword with a single, ringing blow. These were not mere weapons of war, they were masterpieces of metallurgy, forged from a material whose secret has been lost to time, Damascus steel. The origins of this legendary metal trace back to India, where craftsmen produced unique ingots of ultra-high carbon steel known as woots. These raw cakes of iron were then traded to workshops in the Middle Eastern city of Damascus, where master smiths worked their magic. The result was a blade possessing two legendary qualities. The first was its visible signature, a mesmerizing, watery pattern on the surface like a frozen stream. The second was its performance, an extraordinary combination of hardness that held a razor edge and a surprising flexibility that prevented it from snapping in combat. For centuries, the method for creating this steel remained an enigma. Modern science, using electron microscopes, has finally peered into the metal's soul, revealing a microscopic structure that is breathtakingly advanced. The strength came from the presence of carbon nanotubes, incredibly strong microscopic structures that reinforced the steel, a feat of nano-engineering we thought was a modern discovery. But identifying the ingredients is not the same as knowing the recipe. The secret lay in the entire alchemical process. The smiths started with those specific woots ingots, which contained precise trace elements like vanadium. They then heated and hammered the steel, but the true genius was in the control of its cooling. The ingot had to be cooled at an excruciatingly slow and specific rate, a process that encouraged the formation of those carbon nanotubes and the distinctive carbide patterns that created the watery surface. It was a dance of fire and time that we have not been able to perfectly replicate. Surviving examples in museums today, centuries old, still possess a sharpness and a spring that modern replicas struggle to match. The knowledge was not written down in detailed manuals, but passed from master to apprentice through an oral tradition, a living chain of skill and feel that was irrevocably broken by industrialization and the collapse of the old trade routes. The loss of Damascus steel is a stark reminder that some of humanity's greatest achievements were not just about what we made, but about the intimate, hands-on wisdom of how we made it. What other profound arts have vanished because the last master died before whispering the final, crucial step to an apprentice? This question of lost knowledge echoes in a different form, not in the strength of a blade, but in the impossible clarity of a lens. Amidst the clashing of swords and the splintering of oars on the ancient seas, another terror reigned supreme, a weapon that seemed to wield the very element of hellfire itself. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded secret and its ultimate naval advantage. Imagine the sheer horror of facing an enemy fleet, only to see a stream of liquid fire arch from their ships, a flame that clung to the water, burning on the waves and consuming your wooden vessels in an inferno that could not be doused. Water only made it rage more fiercely. This was not mere propaganda. It was a technological terror that repeatedly saved Constantinople from being overrun. Historical accounts describe its deployment through bronze tubes mounted on the prows of Byzantine warships, where operators would pump a pressurized mixture through a nozzle, spitting a continuous jet of fire onto the enemy. Some historians believe a hand-pumped syringe, like a giant flamethrower, was used, while others suggest a heating mechanism was needed to make the substance ready for its fiery launch. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical damage. To a sailor of the time, facing a force that could command fire to burn on water was like facing a foe with the power of a vengeful god. It broke formations, it shattered morale, and it turned the tide of entire battles. The most famous instance was during the Arab sieges of Constantinople in the 7th and 8th centuries, where the Byzantine navy, though often outnumbered, used this horrific weapon to incinerate the invading fleets, preserving the empire for centuries to come. So what was this miraculous and terrifying substance? Its exact composition remains one of history's greatest secrets, lost because the formula was considered a state secret of the highest order. Emperors ensured that only a very few trusted individuals, perhaps even a single family, ever knew the full recipe. When that lineage was broken, the knowledge vanished forever. Modern chemists have pieced together likely ingredients, suggesting it was a volatile cocktail based on crude petroleum, similar to naphtha, possibly mixed with resin to make it sticky, and other compounds like quicklime, which ignites upon contact with water. This would explain its most fearsome property, the fact that it seemed to be activated by the very sea meant to quench it. The ethical weight of such a weapon is profound. It was, by ancient standards, a weapon of mass destruction. One whose secret was so devastating its creators chose to let it die with them rather than risk it falling into the wrong hands. Its loss makes us wonder, was this an act of ultimate responsibility, or did it rob future generations of a chemical understanding we have yet to rediscover? The mystery of Greek fire is a stark lesson in how the power of a technology can be so great that its own creators become the guardians of its extinction. The same Roman artisans who perfected self-healing concrete also manipulated light itself with a skill that seems to defy their era. In the quiet halls of the British Museum rests a small glass cup that performs a magic trick every time the light changes. Under normal reflected light, it appears a solid, opaque jade green, but hold it up to a light source and the entire cup transforms, glowing with a deep, translucent ruby red. This is the Lycurgus Cup, a Roman artifact from the 4th century, and its secret is not in any dye or pigment, but in a cloud of precious metals suspended within the glass, particles so small they are invisible to the human eye. Modern analysis with powerful microscopes has revealed the astonishing truth. The glass is impregnated with a precise mixture of gold and silver nanoparticles, each one measuring about 70 nanometers across, a scale so minute it is 1,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. The Romans, whether by accident or profound design, had mastered a form of colloidal chemistry. They were manipulating matter at the nanoscale. The color change, known as the dichroic effect, is a result of how these tiny metal particles interact with light. When light reflects off the surface of the glass, the silver particles dominate, scattering the light to make the cup look green. But when light shines through the glass, the gold particles take over, absorbing the blue and green wavelengths and allowing the deep red to pass through. For this effect to work so perfectly, the particles must be of a very specific size and evenly distributed throughout the entire object. Achieving this consistency is the very challenge that stumps modern glassmakers today. Even with our advanced technology and precise instruments, we struggle to replicate the Lycurgus Cup with the same stunning clarity and consistent color transformation. The question of how they did it remains open. Did Roman craftsmen intentionally add a finely ground powder of gold and silver to the molten glass? Or was it a happy yet controlled accident, the result of contaminating the batch with a specific metal dust that produced this miraculous effect? The cup's artistic theme only deepens the mystery. It depicts the myth of King Lycurgus, entangled by the vine god Dionysus as punishment for his defiance. Some scholars suggest the color shift is deeply symbolic, representing the king's life, green and vital, turning to the blood red of his downfall when the light of divine judgment shines upon him. This was not just a drinking vessel, it was a story told through a material that lived and breathed with the light around it. The Lycurgus Cup stands as a breathtaking fusion of art, mythology, and a science we are only now beginning to comprehend. It forces us to ask if this was a one-off marvel, or a glimpse into a lost world of ancient nanotechnology, where artisans understood the hidden properties of materials in a way we have since forgotten. High on a windswept plateau overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, a fortress wall of staggering scale defies all logic. These are the stones of Sacsayhuaman, blocks of limestone so colossal that some weigh over 100 tons, yet they are cut and joined with a precision that seems impossible. The seams between these gigantic blocks are so perfectly tight that you cannot force a single piece of paper, nor even the blade of the sharpest knife between them. This is not simple stacking, it is a three-dimensional stone puzzle of immense weight and complexity, assembled without a single drop of mortar. How could a culture without the wheel, without iron tools, and without written plans achieve such an architectural marvel? The stones are not simple rectangles. Each one is a unique, multifaceted shape, with complex angles and bulging surfaces that lock into its neighbors on all sides. This interlocking design was not just for show, it was a brilliant engineering solution for a land plagued by earthquakes. When the ground shakes, the stones of Sacsayhuaman do not crumble, they dance. The complex joints allow the entire wall to shift and settle during a tremor, before locking securely back into place once the shaking stops. This is a structure designed to move, to breathe with the earth itself. The same genius is visible at other Inca sites like Machu Picchu and Ollantaytambo, a consistent signature of a master building tradition. So how was it done? Archaeologists and engineers have proposed theories for centuries. Some suggest they used harder stones to pound the blocks into shape, a process of patient abrasion that would have taken generations. Others point to intricate measuring tools and templates, perhaps strings and clay models, to plan each unique cut. More speculative ideas even wonder if the Inca had discovered a way to soften the stone using plant acids, or if they possessed a lost knowledge of sound, using sonic vibrations to levitate the massive blocks into position. The true method for moving these multi-ton stones across miles of rugged mountain terrain remains just as mysterious. Did they use log rollers, earthen ramps, and armies of laborers, or was there a simpler, more elegant technique we have yet to consider? The walls of Sacsayhuaman stand in silent testament to a skill that we can observe, we can measure, but with all our modern machinery and engineering, we cannot truly replicate. It forces a humbling thought. Perhaps the greatest lost technology here is not a specific tool, but a forgotten way of seeing stone not as an obstacle, but as a pliable material, waiting for a master's hand to find its perfect fit. While the Romans manipulated glass with nanoscale precision, the Vikings conquered the treacherous North Atlantic with a different kind of genius, one that could pierce the veil of the sky itself. Their legendary voyages to Iceland, Greenland, and even North America were navigational feats that seem almost impossible. How could they cross vast, featureless oceans under the perpetual grey clouds of the northern seas without a compass? The sagas speak of a mysterious tool, a solar stein or sunstone. This was no mythical object. It was a real crystal, likely a type of calcite known as Iceland spar, that possessed a property we now call double refraction. When you look through a clear piece of this crystal, you see two images. A skilled navigator could hold the stone up to an overcast sky, rotating it slowly. Even when the sun was completely hidden by cloud or fog, its light still penetrated the haze as a polarized pattern, invisible to the naked eye. By turning the sunstone until the two images seen through the crystal matched in brightness, the Viking navigator could pinpoint the exact location of the hidden sun, establishing a reliable east-west line to guide their ship. It was like having a window to a star that no one else could see. Modern physicists have confirmed this works perfectly, and experimental voyages using replica sunstones have successfully navigated under total cloud cover. The true brilliance of Viking navigation, however, lay in its redundancy. They likely used the sunstone in combination with other methods, like tracking the position of the sun at noon or watching the flight paths of seabirds, creating a robust system that did not rely on any single point of failure. This was not magic, it was applied optical science. A sunstone fragment was even discovered on an Elizabethan shipwreck from the 1500s, suggesting the knowledge persisted for centuries before fading away. Why did such a powerful tool fall out of use? The magnetic compass arriving from the east was simpler and worked under a wider range of conditions, rendering the more delicate sunstone obsolete. Yet its existence hints at a profound understanding of the natural world. The Vikings did not just brave the unknown, they decoded its hidden signals, using the very fabric of light to guide them to new worlds. What other secrets of the sky did ancient cultures possess? Secrets written not in ink, but in the subtle interplay of light and crystal. Deep within the basement of a Baghdad museum rests a simple clay jar that challenges our entire timeline of electrical discovery. Found in the 1930s just outside the city, this unassuming artifact, dating to the Pantheon period around 2,000 years ago, contains a stunning secret. Inside the jar, a carefully rolled copper cylinder houses a solid iron rod, and the whole assembly was sealed at the top with an asphalt plug. To any modern engineer, this looks unmistakably like the core components of a primitive battery. The asphalt would have held the metal rods in place, preventing them from touching, while also acting as a sealant for the jar's contents. If this vessel was filled with an acidic or alkaline liquid, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, it would become a basic galvanic cell. The electrolyte would trigger a chemical reaction between the two different metals, causing electrons to flow and creating a small but measurable electric current, perhaps just over 1 volt. That is enough power to generate a subtle tingle on the tongue or to deposit a thin layer of metal onto another object. The controversy, of course, lies in its purpose. Why would an ancient civilization need a small, steady current of electricity? One of the most compelling theories is electroplating. Artisans could have used a series of these batteries to gild a copper or silver object with a fine layer of gold, a process that would explain the exquisite, thin gold plating found on some artifacts from the same era and region. Other suggestions are more speculative. Perhaps the mild shock was used for medicinal or religious purposes, a form of physical therapy or a mystical sensation during temple rituals. It is crucial to note that no wires or electrodes have ever been found with these jars, leaving their intended use shrouded in mystery. Yet the proof of concept is undeniable. Modern experimenters like the late German Egyptologist Arne Egebrecht have built exact replicas. Using only vinegar as an electrolyte, he successfully electroplated a small statue with a microscopic layer of gold, demonstrating that the technology was entirely feasible. Was the Baghdad Battery a one-off curiosity, or was it part of a broader, forgotten understanding of electrical principles? The very idea forces us to reconsider the quiet hum of knowledge that might have existed in the ancient world, a spark of comprehension that flickered and died long before figures like Volta and Galvani were born. If such a simple device could generate power, what other, more profound sources of energy might the ancients have discovered and then lost to time? Another silent messenger from the ancient world sits in a museum on Crete, just as mysterious as the day it was unearthed. The Phaistos disk is a small, baked clay tablet, roughly the size of a small plate, and its surface is covered on both sides with a spiraling sequence of bewildering symbols. There are marching men and women, birds, fish, shields, and strange geometric shapes, all arranged in a tight, clockwise coil from the center out. What makes this object truly revolutionary is not just its undeciphered message, but how that message was made. Each of the 241 symbols was not carved or drawn. They were stamped into the soft clay with individual seals, making this the earliest known example of movable type printing in human history. Someone over 3,500 years ago had a set of pre-formed punches and used them to imprint a text onto this disk before firing it. This was a technology for replication, for producing multiple copies of the same document, a concept that would not become widespread for another 3,000 years with Gutenberg. Yet from this one solitary object, we have no other examples of the script, no other stamped documents, and no key to unlock its meaning. Linguists and archaeologists have tried for over a century to crack its code. They have identified 45 distinct signs, suggesting it is a syllabic script, where each symbol represents a syllable rather than a single letter or a whole idea. But it matches no known language, ancient or modern. It is an isolated system of communication, a language without a context, a message without a sender or a receiver. This has led to a carnival of theories about its purpose. Was it a religious hymn, a prayer to a forgotten goddess, a legal document recording a treaty or a land grant? Perhaps it was something more mundane, like the rules for a board game or an ancient geometric theorem. Some even speculate it is a passport or a traveler's guide, its spiral representing a journey. The very fact that we can so wildly guess underscores how completely this form of information technology has been lost to us. The disk is a haunting reminder that writing is not permanent. Entire languages and the worlds they described have vanished, leaving behind only these cryptic fragments. We can build particle colliders and probe the edges of the universe, but we cannot read the mail of our own ancestors. What vast chapters of human thought, what stories and laws and songs are imprisoned forever in that silent, spiraling script, standing in the heart of Delhi for over 1,600 years? A 7-ton iron pillar defies one of nature's most relentless laws. It has endured scorching heat, drenching monsoons, and the passage of countless centuries without a single speck of rust. This is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, a metallurgical miracle that modern science can observe but cannot truly recreate. Its inscription, carved in ancient Sanskrit, praises a king named Chandra. Yet its true legacy is not in the words it bears, but in the incorruptible metal from which it is made. This is not stainless steel, a modern alloy. It is wrought iron of an almost supernatural purity. The secret to its longevity lies in a perfect, and likely accidental, storm of ingredients and craftsmanship. The iron used by those ancient smiths was remarkably pure, with one critical impurity, a high phosphorus content. Modern iron production deliberately removes phosphorus because it can make the metal brittle. But here, that very flaw became its greatest strength. As the pillar was forged, a massive team of artisans worked for weeks, hammer welding small pieces of hot iron into that single, colossal shaft. This laborious process incorporated slag and other impurities into the metal in a specific, layered pattern. Over centuries, these elements, especially the phosphorus, reacted with the oxygen in the air to form a remarkably thin, continuous protective film on the pillar's surface. Scientists call this layer mesowite, a stable blend of iron, oxygen, and hydrogen that acts as a perfect, invisible shield. It prevents water and oxygen from penetrating deeper to form the destructive red oxide we know as rust. This passive protective layer is so effective that it even heals itself from minor scratches over time. Modern attempts to forge iron with similar properties have failed to achieve the same perfect, self-repairing barrier. Our industrial processes are too clean, too efficient. We remove the phosphorus that the ancient smiths, working with local ores, could not. We lack the patience for the meticulous, small-batch hammer welding that gave the pillar its unique internal structure. The pillar stands as a monument not to a king, but to a forgotten school of metallurgy, a profound understanding of material science that viewed impurities not as defects, but as potential ingredients. Why was such a brilliant method lost? The knowledge was likely passed down through generations of smiths, a hands-on tradition that faded as empires fell and technologies shifted. It represents a path not taken in our own industrial evolution, one that valued longevity over speed and harmony with natural materials over total control. This ancient iron challenges our very definition of progress. We produce steel in immense quantities, yet we cannot make a simple bar that will stand untouched for millennia. What other profound wisdom about the materials of our world was abandoned in the relentless march toward modern efficiency? This pursuit of permanence finds an echo not in forged metal, but in woven cloth, in a fabric so fine it was believed to be the work of fairies. Deep within the crypts of the Egyptian temple at Dendera, a stone relief carved into the wall presents a mystery that sparks fierce debate even today. It shows a strange, oversized object, a bulb-like shape that tapers at one end, inside which a snake stretches its body along a wavy line. This serpent is held in place by a pillar, the jed, while a figure reaches toward it as if to steady the entire assembly. To some, this is an obvious depiction of an ancient light bulb, with a snake representing the glowing filament. The mainstream view of Egyptology, however, interprets this scene as deeply symbolic. The snake is the god Horus emerging from a lotus flower, representing rebirth and the journey of the sun god through the underworld, a story of cosmic cycles, not electrical circuits. The jed pillar is a symbol of stability, and the entire tableau is rich with religious iconography found throughout ancient Egyptian art. Yet, the alternative theory persists, fueled by a single, nagging question. How did the artists who painted and carved the vast, intricate interiors of tombs and temples work in such profound, windowless darkness without leaving any trace of soot from torches or oil lamps? The absence of soot stains in many of these sealed chambers is a genuine point of curiosity that has never been fully explained by conventional means. Engineers who have analyzed the Dendera relief point out that the components do bear a striking, if superficial, resemblance to an electrical system. The snake could be a filament, the jed pillar an insulator, and the arm reaching in could be the hand of a priest acting as a technician. Some have even drawn parallels to similar elongated, bulb-like objects found in reliefs from other ancient cultures, suggesting a possible shared archetype of a forgotten technology. Modern experimenters have taken this idea into the physical world, attempting to connect replicas of the Baghdad Battery to a glass bulb containing a metal filament. In some demonstrations, a faint, flickering glow has been achieved, proving that a low level of illumination is theoretically possible with such ancient components. But this is a far cry from the bright, steady light needed for the meticulous artwork inside the pyramids. The evidence remains entirely circumstantial, a collection of intriguing what-ifs without a single shred of physical proof, like a broken bulb or a length of ancient wire ever being found. The true power of the Dendera relief may not be in what it proves, but in what it represents. It is a perfect mirror for our own modern perspective. We look at the past and see our own technologies reflected back at us. We see a light bulb because we live in a world illuminated by electricity. The ancient Egyptians saw the journey of a god because they lived in a world animated by myth and symbol. The mystery forces us to confront the limits of our interpretation. Was this simply a beautiful and complex religious allegory, or could it have been a coded diagram, a way of preserving a form of knowledge so advanced that its true nature was hidden within the sacred stories? Perhaps the real lost technology here is not the bulb itself, but the ability to read the ancient mind, to know for certain whether we are looking at a divine symbol or the blueprint for a forgotten power that once banished the darkness. This visual enigma gives way to a wonder not of sight, but of sound, where the stones themselves were tuned to sing. Scattered across the arid plains of southern Peru, an immense gallery of art lies invisible to those standing on the ground. These are the Nazca Lines, a sprawling collection of hundreds of geometric shapes and giant animal figures etched into the dark desert floor, some stretching over 1,200 feet long. A hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, and an orca, all drawn on a scale so vast they can only be truly comprehended from the sky. Created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 CE, these geoglyphs present a monumental puzzle. How did a people without flight, without sophisticated mapping tools, design and execute such precise, colossal figures with near-perfect symmetry and straight lines that run for miles? The methods, as pieced together by archaeologists, speak to a brilliant application of simple technology. The Nazca artists did not need complex machinery. They understood their environment intimately. The desert pavement is covered in a layer of dark, iron oxide-coated pebbles. To create a line, they simply removed these top stones, exposing the lighter, sandy soil beneath. The stark contrast creates the visible mark, and the arid, windless climate of the region has acted as a perfect preservative for nearly 2,000 years. For the straight lines and geometric shapes, researchers believe they used a series of stakes and ropes. By setting a central stake and using a cord to inscribe a perfect circle, they could create radiating lines and angles. To transfer a small-scale model up to its gigantic final form, they might have used a grid system, scaling up the design step by step across the vast landscape. Yet, the sheer perfection of the curves in the animal figures, the unerring accuracy of the triangles and trapezoids that stretch to the horizon, leaves even modern surveyors in awe. This was not haphazard scratching in the dirt. It required meticulous planning, a shared communal vision, and an extraordinary sense of proportion executed over generations. So what was the ultimate purpose of this immense earthly canvas? The theories are as grand as the lines themselves. Some scholars propose the geoglyphs were a giant astronomical calendar, with certain lines pointing to celestial events like the solstice sun. Others see them as sacred pathways, walked during religious rituals to petition the gods for water, the most precious resource in the desert. The animal figures likely held deep spiritual significance, representing constellations or powerful totemic beings. Look at the hummingbird, its long beak and wings captured in a single, flowing line, or the spider, one leg elongated in a detail that is only recognizable from high above. Creating these figures required the artists to hold the complete, perfect image in their minds, a feat of abstract vision we can barely grasp. This was an act of profound cultural dedication, a project that bound a community together for centuries, transforming their entire landscape into a sacred map. Why pour such immense effort into creating art you can never fully see? The answer may lie in a world where the gods resided in the sky, and these magnificent drawings were meant for their eyes alone. This earthly art, meant for a celestial audience, finds a strange parallel in a tool that used the sky itself as a guide, a device that could track the stars with mechanical precision. A book exists that no one on Earth can read. Its pages are filled with a flowing, unknown script, a language that matches no other in history, accompanied by illustrations of plants that have never been identified and celestial charts of constellations we do not recognize. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a literary ghost that has defied every attempt at understanding for over a century. Since its modern discovery by the Polish book dealer Wilfrid Voynich in 1912, this enigmatic text has become the holy grail of cryptographers, a puzzle that has consumed the brightest minds from both world wars and, more recently, the most advanced artificial intelligence. These sophisticated algorithms, capable of parsing millions of linguistic patterns in seconds, have all reached the same frustrating conclusion. The text possesses a statistical structure that resembles a real language, yet its code remains unbreakable, its words a perfect mask for an unknowable message. Linguists and historians are divided into three camps. The first believes it is an elaborate, meaningless hoax, crafted in the 15th century to defraud a wealthy patron. The second argues it is a real language, either a forgotten dialect or a sophisticated cipher, so cleverly constructed that the key has been lost forever. The third, and perhaps most tantalizing, theory suggests it represents a complete system of lost natural philosophy, a unique world view where botany and astronomy were intertwined in a way modern science has never conceived. The manuscript itself is a physical artifact of vellum, its pages made from calfskin, and its illustrations painted with inks that were common for the period. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, yet its content is utterly alien. The book is divided into distinct sections that hint at a grand, organized mind. There is an herbal section, filled with paintings of fantastical plants possessing strange, swirling roots and leaves unlike any known species. Were these imaginative symbols or accurate depictions of a botanical knowledge that has since vanished from the world? Then there are the astronomical pages, showing circular diagrams of the sun, moon, and stars in arrangements that do not correspond to our night sky, suggesting a different cosmology altogether. One of the most peculiar sections is filled with drawings of naked women bathing in or connected by a complex network of green, tube-like structures, as if mapping some unknown biological or even alchemical process. The Voynich Manuscript is not entirely alone in its mystery. It sits alongside other undeciphered texts like the cryptic Rohunk Codex from Hungary or the mysterious Rongo-Rongo script of Easter Island. Their collective silence forces a humbling question. We can send probes to the edge of the solar system, but we cannot read the library of our own planet. What vast realms of thought, what entire schools of knowledge about the natural world, have been erased so completely that their very language is now nothing more than a beautiful, impenetrable pattern on a page. This loss of a potential botanical encyclopedia finds a strange echo in a different kind of library, one not made of vellum but of crystal, where information was stored in a medium we are only now learning to use. One of history's most enduring images is the stern gaze of a Moai statue on Easter Island, a silent giant standing guard over a remote and treeless landscape. The mystery of how the Rapa Nui people transported these colossal figures is a puzzle of pure logistics. Over 880 of these statues were carved from compressed volcanic ash at a single quarry, Rono Roroku, with the largest one left unfinished towering at nearly 70 feet and weighing an estimated 270 tons. The completed moai, some weighing over 80 tons, then had to travel as far as 11 miles across rugged terrain to their final ceremonial platforms, the ahu. How was this possible without wheels, without large animals, and on an island that European explorers later described as barren? One compelling theory, supported by successful modern experiments, suggests the islanders used a technique called walking the statues. Teams of rope pullers would rock the moai from side to side, edging it forward inch by inch in a controlled, upright shuffle. This method, demonstrated by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, shows that surprisingly small groups could move a multi-ton statue hundreds of yards in just a few days. The physics works because the statue's bellies are carved with a forward center of gravity, helping them lean forward as they are rocked, while their curved bases prevent them from digging into the ground. Another theory points to the island's ancient network of prepared roads, which are littered with broken moai, suggesting they were transported horizontally on wooden sledges or log rollers. This vision of a society unified by a grand, spiritual project, however, is shadowed by its tragic collapse. The very act of statue transport, requiring vast quantities of wood for ropes and sledges, may have contributed to the deforestation that ultimately crippled the island's ecosystem. This led to warfare, resource scarcity, and the eventual toppling of the moai themselves. The quarry at Rono Roroku stands as a haunting time capsule, with nearly 400 statues in various stages of completion, as if the workers simply laid down their tools and walked away. The moai are more than statues, they are monuments to human ambition and a stark warning about the limits of an environment. They force us to wonder if the greatest lost technology here was not the method of moving stone, but the social and ecological wisdom needed to sustain such a colossal endeavor. This fascination with moving immense weight gives way to another ancient obsession, the challenge of lifting it, of building towards the heavens. The Great Pyramid of Giza presents a logistical nightmare that has captivated and confounded engineers for centuries. Constructed from an almost unimaginable 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, the pyramid was built with a precision that borders on the impossible. Modern calculations suggest the builders would have needed to set one of these massive blocks into its perfect place every 2 to 3 minutes during a typical work season, a pace that challenges even our most advanced construction methods today. The sheer scale of the workforce required to achieve this, tens of thousands of highly skilled laborers, speaks to a level of social organization and project management that was unparalleled in the ancient world. How did they maintain such relentless momentum without modern cranes or power tools? The most widely accepted theory involves an intricate system of ramps. Archaeologists have proposed various designs, from a single, long straight ramp winding up from the Nile Valley to a more efficient spiraling ramp that coiled around the rising structure itself. Yet each theory has its flaws. A straight ramp of the necessary slope to reach the top would have required more material to build than the pyramid itself, a mountain of earth and brick that defies practical sense. An internal spiral ramp solves the volume issue but creates another. How did workers maneuver large, multi-ton blocks around tight corners deep inside a dark, confined space? Other ideas suggest the use of sophisticated levers and counterweights, a kind of mechanical ballet that lifted each block incrementally from one tier to the next. The truth likely involved a combination of these methods, a lost system of engineering that was both elegantly simple and devastatingly effective. The precision extends far beyond simple stacking. A pyramid's base is almost a perfect square, with sides that align almost perfectly with the four cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. The greatest deviation from true north is less than 1/15th of a single degree, an accuracy that seems inconceivable for a people without magnetic compasses or satellite imagery. This was achieved through celestial alignment, likely using the stars to calibrate their measurements over the course of a year. Inside, the complexity deepens. The Grand Gallery is a masterpiece of corbelled stonework, its walls built with each layer slightly overlapping the one below, creating a soaring, stable vault without any central supports. From the king's chamber, two narrow, perfectly straight shafts pierce through the massive core of the pyramid, pointing directly towards specific stars in the ancient sky. Were these air shafts for ventilation, spiritual passageways for the pharaoh's soul, or something else entirely? The quarries across the Nile reveal how the limestone blocks were cut, with workers driving wooden wedges into natural fissures and soaking them with water until the expanding would split the stone. But moving these blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, from the quarry to the building site remains a profound mystery. Did they float them on barges during the Nile's annual flood, then drag them on lubricated sledges across the desert plateau? The Great Pyramid is not an isolated marvel. It is part of a larger complex at Giza and part of an evolution of pyramid building in Egypt, from the first step pyramid at Saqqara to the bent pyramid at Dosha. Each one represents a step in a learning curve, a process of trial and error that culminated in the ultimate achievement at Giza. Yet, the pinnacle of that learning curve, the specific techniques for fitting multi-ton stones with seams thinner than a credit card, for aligning a 480-foot-tall structure to the stars with such breathtaking accuracy, appears to have been a fleeting moment of perfection. The later pyramids, while still impressive, never matched the scale or precision of the Great Pyramid. This leads to a fascinating and more speculative question. Was the knowledge lost simply because the master architects died without passing on every secret? Or does the pyramid's perfect geometry and strange internal features hint at a deeper understanding of energy and the earth itself, a form of architectural resonance that we are only beginning to comprehend? A modern man with no formal education performed a feat that seems to defy every law of physics. In the early 20th century, a Latvian immigrant named Edward Līdzkalnis single-handedly built Coral Castle in Florida, an intricate complex of massive stone sculptures and structures carved from over 1,000 tons of oolite limestone. Working alone and mostly at night, he moved and positioned enormous blocks, some weighing as much as 30 tons, using only the most basic tools like chains, pulleys, and metal tripods. He claimed he had rediscovered the building secrets of the ancient Egyptians, the very principles used to raise the pyramids. Yet he guarded his methods with an obsessive secrecy, telling curious onlookers only that he understood the laws of weight and leverage, and that he knew how the Egyptians had moved their colossal blocks. The sheer physical impossibility of his work has baffled engineers and skeptics for decades. How could one man, just 5 feet tall and weighing 100 pounds, accomplish what normally requires teams of workers with heavy machinery? The conventional explanation points to simple, albeit brilliant, mechanics. He likely used an intricate system of block and tackle, a network of pulleys and ropes that multiplies force, allowing a single person to lift immense weights with patient, incremental effort. He may have used levers and pivots to slowly rotate and position the stones. His own tools found on the site support this theory of clever, rudimentary engineering. But Lycurgus himself hinted at something far more mysterious. He spoke constantly of magnetism and claimed to have uncovered the true nature of cosmic forces. In his cryptic, self-published writings, he described a world where all matter was simply individual magnets interacting, and he suggested he had learned to manipulate these fundamental forces to counteract gravity itself. One of the castle's most famous features gives credence to the idea that he possessed an uncanny understanding of balance and mass. A solid stone gate weighing 9 tons is so perfectly balanced on a simple truck axle that a child can push it open with a single finger. It rotated flawlessly for decades until it was finally taken off its hinges for maintenance in the 1980s, and even teams of engineers with modern equipment struggled to rebalance it with the same perfect precision. Was this just a masterful application of leverage, or was it a demonstration of a deeper principle he had unlocked? His story is a modern echo of the ancient enigmas, a powerful reminder that the lost technologies of the world may not always be artifacts buried in dust. They could be ideas, unique understandings of physics that flicker into existence in the mind of a solitary individual, and then vanish just as quickly when they are gone. Edward Lycurgus took his secrets to the grave, leaving behind a stone garden that stands as a silent challenge. It forces us to wonder if the greatest mysteries are not about the tools we find, but about the hidden principles of the universe that a few rare individuals across the centuries have somehow learned to see. While Edward Lycurgus worked in secret, an ancient Chinese inventor received imperial acclaim for a public marvel of mechanical foresight. In the year 132, during the Han Dynasty, the brilliant astronomer and engineer Zhang Heng unveiled the world's first seismoscope. His device could do something that seems almost magical, detecting an earthquake hundreds of miles away and pointing to its direction of origin. The instrument was a masterpiece of both art and science, a large bronze vessel adorned with 8 dragons, each facing a cardinal direction. Below each dragon sat a corresponding bronze frog, its mouth open wide. Inside the vessel, the secret mechanism waited. When a distant tremor shook the ground, a delicate internal pendulum would swing, tripping a lever inside one of the dragons. This would release a heavy bronze ball from that dragon's mouth, which would clatter decisively into the waiting frog below, announcing the direction of the quake with a loud, metallic ring. The historical records tell us it worked with startling accuracy. On one occasion, a ball dropped from the dragon facing west, though no one in the capital had felt a tremor. Days later, a messenger arrived from a province far to the west, reporting a major earthquake. The device had sensed what human senses could not. The genius of Zhang Heng's seismoscope lies in the mystery of its interior. We know it had a pendulum, but the precise arrangement of levers and gears that could so selectively and reliably release a single ball remains a subject of fierce debate among historians and seismologists. Some theories suggest an inverted pendulum that would tilt in the direction of the seismic waves. Others propose a system of weighted arms that would be dislodged by specific vibrations. The exact design, the perfect calibration that filtered out everyday shakes to respond only to true earthquakes, was lost in the tumult of history following the Han Dynasty's decline. Modern engineers have built numerous replicas based on different theories. Some have successfully detected simulated quakes, proving the concept was sound, but none have achieved the legendary reliability described in the ancient texts. This was not a simple curiosity, it was a functional early warning system. In an empire as vast as China, such a device could provide the central government with crucial information days before messengers could arrive, allowing for swifter dispatch of aid to devastated regions. Zhang Heng's creation embodies a profound fusion of artistic beauty and rigorous science. The dragons and frogs were more than decoration, they were part of a cosmological worldview, representing the harmony of heaven and earth. The device itself was a symbol of imperial power and benevolent governance, a tool to understand and respond to the otherwise wrathful will of the planet. Its loss makes us wonder how many other brilliant mechanical minds turned their attention to predicting the whims of nature. How much further could we have advanced in our understanding of the Earth's movements if this lineage of inquiry had never been broken? Deep in the river deltas of Costa Rica, hundreds of nearly perfect stone spheres lay hidden for centuries, ranging from the size of a grapefruit to colossal orbs over 2 meters in diameter and weighing more than 15 tons. These artifacts were crafted by the pre-Columbian Diquis culture. Their surfaces are so unnaturally smooth and their shapes so precisely spherical that they challenge our assumptions about ancient craftsmanship. How could a society without metal tools or the wheel achieve such geometric perfection? Archaeologists propose that the creators used a patient process of hammering with other hard stones, then grinding with sand and water abrasives to slowly smooth the surface. Yet, even with these methods, the final step, achieving a near-perfect sphere across such a massive surface, remains deeply puzzling. Modern sculptors with power tools can replicate the form, but they admit that matching the consistency and smoothness by hand would be an immense, almost unimaginable challenge. The purpose of these spheres is as mysterious as their creation. Some were found arranged in alignments, pointing to celestial events or forming geometric patterns that may have served as astronomical calendars. Others were placed in prominent positions near chiefs' residences, suggesting they were powerful symbols of social status, lineage, or territorial control. Their distribution across the landscape hints at a complex cultural map, a language of stone now lost to us. Tragically, many of the spheres were looted or damaged by bulldozers in the 20th century when they were rediscovered, severing their original context and making it even harder for us to read their story. The very perfection of these spheres invites a deeper reflection. Why would a culture invest such immense effort into creating perfect forms? This obsession with geometry might point to a world where harmony and balance were not just artistic ideals, but fundamental principles of the cosmos. The silent, smooth surface of a stone sphere holds a mystery that goes beyond mere construction, leading us to wonder about the ancient mind that saw a perfect shape hidden within a raw boulder and possessed the patience and skill to set it free. This pursuit of geometric perfection in stone finds a strange parallel in a different kind of ancient mystery, one not of silent forms, but of resonant spaces designed to manipulate sound itself. Legends from the high mountains of Tibet speak of monks using long trumpets and deep chants to lift massive stones into the air, guiding them effortlessly up the sides of mountains to build remote monasteries. Similar stories echo from ancient Egypt, where priests were said to wield sacred instruments that resonated with the very fabric of matter, making blocks of stone float into position as if they were weightless. These accounts have long been dismissed as pure mythology, but modern physics reveals a startling truth. Acoustic levitation is not only possible, it is a proven scientific principle. In laboratories today, scientists use precisely tuned sound waves to create standing waves, points of high pressure and low pressure that can trap and suspend small objects in midair, from water droplets to tiny pieces of wood and even living insects. The effect works by targeting an object's resonant frequency, the specific vibrational pitch at which it naturally wants to oscillate. Hit that exact note with enough energy, and you can theoretically counteract the pull of gravity. The immense challenge, the part that remains firmly in the realm of the impossible with our current technology, is scaling this delicate effect up to the monumental level described in the legends. To levitate a stone block weighing just 1 ton would require a sound source of unimaginable power and precision, a coherent wall of vibration that we simply cannot generate. The energy needed would be colossal, and the control required to maneuver such a block through the air without it tumbling out of its acoustic field is a problem no one has solved. This gap between laboratory demonstration and ancient legend forces a profound question. Could the builders of megalithic sites like Baalbek or Stonehenge have possessed a lost understanding of vibrational physics? Did they know how to find the resonant frequency of a specific type of granite or sandstone? And did they have the means, perhaps through a chorus of voices or the synchronized pounding of drums, to amplify that frequency to a level where stone itself became light? The idea seems fantastical, yet the eerie acoustic properties of many ancient sites are undeniable. Certain chambers within the Great Pyramid, for instance, are known to amplify specific frequencies, creating strange and powerful resonances. Was this an accidental byproduct of their construction, or was it the signature of their intended function? The potential of sound extends far beyond moving stone. It hints at a forgotten branch of science where vibration was a tool for both construction and healing. This sonic possibility, the idea that ancient knowledge could manipulate physical reality, finds a haunting parallel in a field where modern science is just beginning to catch up, the advanced medical practices of a lost world. The human skull is one of the most resilient structures in nature, a fortress designed to protect our most vital organ. Yet, for thousands of years, ancient surgeons deliberately breached this fortress, cutting or drilling holes into the living bone of a conscious patient. This was trepanation, and the most shocking part is not that it was done, but that so many people survived it. Skulls unearthed from Peru to France, from the Neolithic era to the Inca Empire, show clear signs of healing, the smooth, rounded edges of new bone growth proving the individual lived for months or even years after the procedure. Without anesthesia, without sterile environments, and with only the most basic tools of obsidian, flint, or bronze, these early doctors performed one of the riskiest operations imaginable. How did they manage it, and why would they even attempt it? The reasons were likely as complex as the surgery itself. Some cases suggest it was a treatment for head injuries to relieve pressure from a fractured skull or a traumatic brain bleed. In other cultures, the opening may have been a spiritual act, a way to release evil spirits believed to cause madness or epilepsy. The techniques varied almost as much as the reasons. Archaeologists have found skulls with squares carefully scraped away, with circular grooves cut until a disc of bone could be popped out, or with small holes drilled in a cluster that was then connected. The tools themselves were terrifyingly simple: sharpened volcanic glass or metal blades, and hand-powered drills that required immense skill and a steady hand to avoid piercing the delicate brain beneath. The survival rates deduced from the archaeological record are astonishing. In some ancient Peruvian populations, studies show survival rates could be as high as 80%, a testament to a profound, hands-on understanding of human anatomy. This success hints at a deeper, lost knowledge, a pharmacological wisdom that has completely vanished. What natural antiseptics did they use to clean the wound? What poultices of mold or herb did they apply to prevent the infections that would kill patients for centuries afterward, even into the modern era? Perhaps they used coca leaves as a local anesthetic or understood the antibiotic properties of certain plants. Every healed trep and skull is a silent monument to a forgotten chapter of medicine, a time when surgeons worked with stone tools and what may have been a sophisticated, oral tradition of plant-based healing. This lost surgical skill forces us to reconsider the very definition of primitive, suggesting that ancient healers possessed a practical, life-saving expertise that we are only now beginning to appreciate. The steam that powered Heron's doors was the same force that animated his most famous creation, a whirling metal sphere that many call the world's first steam engine. In his writings, Heron of Alexandria described an eolipile, a simple but brilliant device. A sealed water vessel was suspended over a fire, with two pipes channeling the resulting steam into a hollow sphere that could rotate freely. As the steam escaped through two opposing L-shaped nozzles, the sphere would spin faster and faster, a clear demonstration of action and reaction, the very principle that would one day propel rockets. This was not just a toy, it was a working prototype of a power source, a glimpse of a potential that was never seized. Heron and his contemporaries saw these inventions as marvels, wonders to inspire religious awe or to entertain the elite. The automatic temple doors were a perfect example of this mindset. Worshippers would approach a temple, light a fire on the altar, and through a series of hidden pulleys, ropes, and counterweights driven by the air's expansion from the heat, the great doors would seemingly open on their own, as if by divine command. The mechanism was a masterpiece of pneumatics and engineering, creating a powerful theatrical effect that reinforced faith. Yet, this practical application of steam and pressure was never directed toward industry, toward freeing human labor on a massive scale. Why did this happen? The social and economic conditions were not ripe. There was an abundance of slave labor, reducing the incentive for labor-saving machines. The intellectual climate saw engineering as a form of clever entertainment rather than a tool for societal transformation. Heron himself catalogued dozens of such inventions, from a coin-operated holy water dispenser to a self-trimming lamp, all brilliant, yet all remaining isolated curiosities. Modern engineers who have reconstructed these devices confirm they work exactly as described. You can see them in museums, these elegant proofs of concept that feel eerily ahead of their time. They represent a road not taken, a spark of automation that never found the right fuel to become an industrial fire. It forces us to consider that a technology is not lost only when its blueprint is destroyed, but also when the vision to see its true potential simply never arrives. This fascination with mechanical precision, with modeling complex systems, finds its ultimate expression not in the manipulation of steam, but in the prediction of the cosmos. Buried in the cold earth of a German forest for 3,600 years, a bronze disk no larger than a dinner plate held a map to the heavens. This is the Nebra Sky Disk, the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos ever discovered, and it reveals a Bronze Age society with a startlingly advanced grasp of the sky. Found by amateur treasure hunters in 1999, the disk is a stunning artifact. Against a blue-green patinated bronze background, gold inlays depict a crescent moon, a full sun or perhaps another full moon, and a cluster of 32 stars, including a tight group of 7 that almost certainly represents the Pleiades constellation. 2 golden arcs along the edges, added later, mark the solstice horizons, while a final arc at the bottom, interpreted as a solar barge, suggests a deep, mythic connection to the sun's journey. Archaeologists and astronomers who have studied the disk believe it was far more than a simple representation. It was a sophisticated astronomical calculator, a tool for harmonizing time itself. The key lies in that specific cluster of the Pleiades. For ancient farmers, the appearance and disappearance of this star cluster in the night sky marked crucial turning points in the agricultural year. The true genius of the disk, however, is how it synchronizes the lunar calendar with the solar year. A lunar year is about 11 days shorter than a solar year, causing the seasons to drift if not corrected. The Nebra Sky Disk encodes a rule. When the crescent moon sits in a specific position relative to the Pleiades, as shown on the disk, it signals the need to intercalate a 13th month, bringing the two cycles back into alignment. This simple, portable device allowed a Bronze Age priest or chieftain to act as a master of time, dictating when to plant, when to harvest, and when to hold the most important rituals. The very materials speak of a vast, interconnected world. The gold used for the celestial symbols was traced through its chemical signature all the way to Cornwall in southwestern Britain, while the copper for the bronze likely came from the Austrian Alps. This was not an isolated tribe, but the Unetis culture, a network of Central European communities capable of long-distance trade and the accumulation of profound knowledge. The disk was likely used by a powerful elite, a tool that granted them authority by linking their rule directly to the immutable order of the cosmos. It was their sacred calendar, their agricultural almanac, and their religious icon all fused into one. Its eventual burial on a hilltop, surrounded by swords and other valuables, hints at a final, desperate ritual, an offering to the gods at a time of great crisis. The loss of such a precise cosmic tool is a quiet catastrophe. It represents the fading of a complex system of knowledge, a way of reading the sky that was so intuitive and so vital it needed no written language, only a bronze disk and a wise pair of eyes to read it. What other subtle calibrations between earth and sky have we forgotten, their secrets rusting quietly beneath our feet? Scattered across the highlands of Scotland and parts of Europe stand the haunting remains of hilltop forts that defy simple explanation. Their stone ramparts are not merely stacked, but fused together into a solid, glassy mass, as if some primordial dragon had breathed fire upon the walls. These are the vitrified forts, and their existence points to a lost pyrotechnic art that stumps modern archaeologists. The process of vitrification requires sustained temperatures in excess of 1,100 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt the very rock itself. How could ancient peoples, presumably using only timber fires, generate and contain such an inferno? The stones themselves provide the first clue. Geologists note that the rocks used, often granite or gneiss, contain high amounts of quartz and feldspar. These minerals act as a natural flux, lowering the melting point of the stone mixture when heated. But this is not a simple matter of throwing wood on a pile of rocks. Experiments attempting to recreate the effect have largely failed, producing only localized, patchy vitrification rather than the continuous, flowing glass seen in the ancient walls. This suggests a deliberate and controlled technique, a lost recipe that may have involved specific arrangements of timber and stone to create a forced draft kiln effect, channeling the heat with terrifying efficiency. The purpose of this monumental effort is just as mysterious. Was it a defensive measure, creating walls that were impossibly smooth and difficult to scale? Did the vitrification ritualistically strengthen the fort, symbolically uniting the community through a trial by fire? Or was it the catastrophic result of a successful siege, where an enemy's fire was so intense it accidentally melted the very stones they sought to capture? The uniformity of the vitrification at sites like Scotland's Tap O' North, where the entire circumference of the summit is fused, argues strongly for intent. This was not a random accident, but a planned communal achievement. the knowledge required to perform this stone alchemy was clearly precise and deeply understood by its practitioners. Yet it vanished completely from the historical record. What urgent need drove them to master such a fearsome transformation of their landscape? And why did that burning knowledge cool into obscurity, leaving behind only these silent, glass-coated sentinels? The stones of the pyramids feel impossibly smooth. Their seams so tight they seem to have grown together rather than being cut and placed. This perfection has fueled one of the most controversial ideas in archaeology, the theory that the ancient builders did not just quarry stone but literally cast it. This is the geopolymer hypothesis, a radical suggestion that some of the world's most massive structures were made from an advanced form of concrete. Proponents like materials chemist Joseph Davidovits argue that the Egyptians mined soft, natural limestone, dissolved it in water, and then mixed it with a specific alkaline activator, a kind of natron salt, and a binder made from kaolinite clay. This created a soupy, mineral slurry that could be poured into wooden molds, where it would chemically set into a reconstituted limestone block. This process, he suggests, would explain the absence of tool marks on many stones, their complex, interlocking shapes, and the presence of air bubbles and organic fibers found in some core samples, materials that should not exist in solid, quarried rock. If true, it would mean the pyramid builders were master chemists, manipulating materials at a molecular level to solve the immense logistical problem of moving multi-ton blocks. They would have been creating artificial stone on site, turning a mountain into a liquid and then back into a mountain of their own design. Mainstream Egyptology, however, remains deeply skeptical. Geologists point to the clear evidence of quarry marks at sites like Tura and Giza, and they argue that the chemical composition of the pyramid stones matches the bedrock from these known quarries. The presence of fossilized nummulites, specific shelled organisms, within the stones acts like a geological fingerprint, tying them directly to their natural source. The debate often centers on a simple but profound question: are we looking at carved rock or cast rock? Modern experiments have shown that creating a geopolymer similar to ancient limestone is possible, producing a material that is durable and weather-resistant. Yet, scaling this process up to build the Great Pyramid, producing millions of blocks in a 20-year time frame, presents its own set of colossal challenges. The theory forces us to consider the very nature of ancient innovation. Did the Egyptians possess a lost recipe for artificial stone, a technology that would not be reinvented for thousands of years? Or does our own modern reliance on concrete make us project our methods onto a past that achieved its miracles through different, equally brilliant means? This puzzle of materials and methods brings us to the threshold of our final and perhaps most profound lost technology, a marvel that touches the very essence of life and death. Suspended in ancient Sanskrit texts is a technology that seems to leap from the pages of science fiction. The Vimanika Shastra, an early 20th century compilation based on much older traditions, describes Vimanas, intricate flying machines of the gods and ancient kings. These are not simple chariots pulled by mythical swans, but complex vehicles with detailed accounts of their construction, operation, and propulsion. The texts speak of mercury vortex engines, systems that used rotating liquid metal to generate lift and power, and they mention anti-gravity principles, concepts that eerily align with areas of our own theoretical physics. One passage describes a ship that becomes invisible, while another details a craft that can hover motionless in the sky or travel vast distances between continents. The materials listed for their construction are just as fascinating, mentioning special heat-resistant alloys named after gods like Tamagab Haloha, a material that absorbed light and sound like a metal which could withstand tremendous force. To the modern ear, it sounds like a blueprint for an advanced aerospace vehicle. Historians and Sanskrit scholars, however, urge caution. They point out that these texts are deeply interwoven with mythological and spiritual allegory. The descriptions are often symbolic, layered with metaphysical concepts where the journey of the Vimana might represent a spiritual ascent as much as a physical one. The Vimanika Shastra itself was channeled through psychic revelation in the early 1900s, making its direct historical lineage to a lost technological golden age difficult to verify. Yet the sheer specificity of the engineering concepts is what gives engineers pause. How could a culture millennia ago conceive of mercury as a rotational fluid for propulsion, an idea that resonates with our own experiments with ion thrusters and gyroscopic stability? The cultural context suggests these stories were more than fantasy. They were part of a worldview that accepted the possibility of human technological mastery over the natural world. Claims of ancient aviation are not unique to India. Egyptian hieroglyphs have been interpreted by some as depicting helicopters and gliders, though Egyptologists explain these as palimpsests, where overlapping carvings from different eras create accidental, modern-looking shapes. In the Americas, pre-Columbian gold artifacts resemble sleek, delta-winged aircraft, yet archaeologists identify them as highly stylized insects or birds. The Tamil sage flying machine exists in this tantalizing space between myth and potential history. It represents the absolute outer boundary of ancient innovation, a concept so advanced that its very possibility forces us to re-examine the ceiling of our ancestors' capabilities. Were these texts the fanciful imaginings of poets inspired by birds and clouds, or were they the garbled, surviving echoes of a technological paradigm so completely lost that we can only recognize its silhouette in our own scientific dreams? This aerial mystery brings our journey to a close, not with a definitive answer, but with a profound sense of wonder at the vast, silent library of human ingenuity, most of which remains forever checked out. A single thread connects all these fallen marvels, the startling fragility of human knowledge. We uncover these artifacts and wonder how such brilliance could simply vanish. But history teaches us that progress is not a steady climb upward. It is a path with dizzying peaks and deep, forgotten valleys. The most common killer of advanced technology was the collapse of the civilization that birthed it. When the Roman Empire fractured, the intricate trade networks that supplied pozzolana ash for self-healing concrete were severed. The specialized workshops that built devices like the Antikythera Mechanism were scattered, their knowledge dying with the last master artisan who understood the gearwork. Invasions and natural disasters played their part, wiping out entire centers of learning and the oral traditions that held secrets not written down. The recipe for Greek fire, for instance, was considered such a potent state secret that its creators may have deliberately allowed it to be lost, a sobering example of knowledge suppressed for its own destructive power. This pattern of loss reveals a profound vulnerability. Many of these technologies were not standalone inventions. They were deeply dependent on a specific cultural context, a rare material, or a sustained period of peace and prosperity. The master smiths of Damascus steel relied on specific iron ingots from India with unique trace elements. When the trade routes shifted, the raw ingredient was gone and the entire art form withered. The Dark Ages in Europe stand as a stark monument to this phenomenon, a centuries-long period where the intricate plumbing of Roman cities, the scale of their architecture, and even the basic knowledge of concrete making faded from memory. Societies turned inward, focused on survival, and the grand engineering projects became impossible dreams. This forces a humbling reflection on our own era. We store our collective knowledge in digital clouds and vast server farms, but how much of it would survive a true collapse? Could future archaeologists ever reconstruct the internet from a pile of corroded circuit boards? The loss of these 25 technologies is not just a catalogue of ancient mysteries, it is a mirror. It shows us that every advancement we celebrate rests on a fragile foundation of social stability, continuous education, and the diligent passing of the torch from one generation to the next. When that chain is broken, the light can go out for 1,000 years. Our journey through these 25 wonders reveals a startling truth, that human ingenuity has flickered with a brilliance we are only beginning to measure. Each device, from the celestial computer of Antikythera to the mythical flying machines of India, forces us to confront a single, humbling idea. The story of technology is not a straight line leading inevitably to us, but a vast and tangled forest where entire groves of discovery have grown, flourished, and then vanished into shadow. These artifacts are not mere curiosities. They are the ghosts of paths not taken, potential branches on the tree of human evolution that were pruned away by time, catastrophe, or forgotten choices. The self-healing concrete of Rome challenges our entire philosophy of construction, asking why we build for decades when we could build for millennia. The Damascus steel sword, with its nanoscale carbon tubes, whispers of a metallurgical art that valued feel and craftsmanship over mass production. Every one of these losses is a lesson in the profound fragility of knowledge. It shows us that progress is not guaranteed, that the light of understanding can be dimmed for centuries when a civilization falls, a trade route is severed, or the last master artisan dies without an apprentice. This exploration is an invitation to see history with new eyes, to question the comfortable narrative of linear advancement, and to marvel at the incredible creativity that has risen time and again across the span of human existence. Let this be a reminder to keep wondering, to keep questioning the stories we are told about our past. Share which of these mysteries captured your imagination in the comments, and subscribe for more journeys into the forgotten corners of our world. Keep exploring, because the next great discovery might not be something new, but something ancient, waiting in the dust for us to finally understand.